Development. But I'm sure you have noticed that over the last couple of days since we had several, we have had several lawmakers as our guests, and we have queried their readiness for the task ahead and how they plan to provide quality and adequate representation to their constituents. Tonight, we will continue along that trail as we speak to yet another lawmaker, federal lawmaker, I should say. My name is Nnamdi Odipo. Welcome to The Mandate. Tonight, we go to the garden city of Port Harcourt, Rivers State, where my guest patiently awaits. A lawyer of reputable standing, having just won re-election yet again, he is going to be a four-term member of the Federal House of Representatives. Honorable Kingsley Chinda currently represents Obiakpo Federal Constituency and has the honor to do so yet again upon the proclamation of the 10th National Assembly in June. Welcome to the mandate, sir. How are you this lovely evening?
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity.
Honorable, 12 years, I beg your pardon, 12 years in the National Assembly. That makes you arguably one of the oldest surviving members of the House of Representatives, arguably. That, of course, could easily translate to experience. But in terms of representation for your constituents and Nigerians at large, can you do me a quick self-assessment of your role so far as a leader, a federal lawmaker and public servant for that matter, within the period under review, and that's about 12 years, and confirm to me if indeed you're satisfied with your service so far?
Thank you for the opportunity, but let me start by saying that if it is as per assessment, I don't think that I'm in a better position to assess myself. I believe that my constituents and Nigerians would have been in a better position to assess me, but having said so, I can clearly say that the function of a parliamentarian is three-pronged, which has to do with the lawmaking, and in terms of lawmaking, several bills have been sponsored by myself over the years, including the very, very important bills of constitutional amendment. Some sailed through, some also did not sail through. And then aside that, we also function in line with the oversight rules of the Assembly as enshrined in the Constitution. And then on that role, I have functioned as the Deputy Chairman of the Customs Committee in the House. I've also functioned as the Chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, which is a very important committee when it comes to oversight. And then the third function of a parliamentarian should be that of representation. How much projects have you attracted to your constituency? How well have you related with your people? How functional is your constituency office and all that. And I can also tell you that in that aspect, I am what Nigerians will call a grassroots politician. As we speak, I'm speaking from my community, in my family house in Romodikrinkeleleon, and I have operated from here over the years. And having said so, I think that the rest is for my constituents and Nigerians to assess.
Well, clearly, very clearly, it is clear that your constituents seem satisfied with your public service record. Otherwise they would not have returned you back to the House of Representatives. So your re-election could very well be an affirmation of the confidence that they have or have reposed in you in terms of representation to have now sent you back for the fourth time, I should say. But tell me, you've talked about some of the things you've done so far, the role of a legislator, federal legislator for that matter. But in terms of, tell me a bit about how you've gone about your work in realization of two popular magazines that you are associated with. One is creating a platform for fair and equal opportunities for all, And yet again, you're credited with always saying that you would promote activities to engender the rule of law. I mean, I may be mistaken if these are not associated with you, but I mean, are these not some of your major concerns as a public servant? Since you have been, I mean, since, and I'm talking about way back, even before you got into the House of Representatives, you're credited as having created these core issues, I mean, and identified them as core public service issues.
I didn't get you very clearly on that question.
Okay, great. I started with saying I appreciate how you've itemized the duties of a federal lawmaker or a lawmaker in terms of representation and things that a federal lawmaker does. So I am saying that you are known for two popular maxims. One is that you always talk about creating platforms for fair and equal opportunities for all. And yet again, you also talk about promoting activities to engender the rule of law. I wanted to know how much so in the last 12 years you have done some work in both of these areas. Get that? We seem to be having an audio challenge here. But if you can hear me, can you just confirm that you can hear me, Honorable?
Rule of law.
Honorable, maybe I should just paraphrase and see if
I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
Oh, perfect. Wonderful. Wonderful. So I was saying you're popular. I mean, it's there are two maxims that are associated with your person. And, you know, since you got into the House of Representatives, you are known to say things like, look, we need to create platforms that will be fair and that will give equal opportunities to all. You're also known and credited to be an advocate for the rule of law. I was wondering if perhaps over the course of 12 years, you could give us an idea of some of the work you've done in this direction. Basically as a federal lawmaker.
Well, thank you. Firstly, let me say that I have always believed that Chapter 2 of the Constitution should be made justiciable. That is the issues of environmental rights, issues that come presently under what we call the non-justiciable aspects of the Constitution. And of course, if that is made justiciable, what it means is that you and I will have a right to litigate over education, right to clean environment, right to minimal standard of living, which of course in some other climes are gradually becoming part of the fundamental human rights of the individual that can be justiciable in court. Yes, if we draw that further, even in Nigeria, for those who are proactive, they can begin to litigate over that. But our laws are not very clear on this aspect. And I have consistently tried to amend the Constitution to make Chapter 2 justiciable. Now, aside that, if you also look at the aspect of this society, we talk about issues of corruption as one of the major problems of this country. I believe that for any change in the society, it must start in the parliament. And that's why if you talk about crucial both economic and political changes in society, they all started in parliament. The independence of Nigeria was gained not from the executive, but on the floor of the parliament. If you talk about industrial revolution in other climes, it all started on the floor of the parliament. And so in Nigeria, it's not going to be different. I don't blame the executive alone. I believe that the parliament is still not doing enough in this country. And when we begin to do what we ought to do the way we ought to do it, I believe that Nigerians should begin to see that change. So I also feel that if it comes to issues that are major problems in society, the first step should be that the parliament must live up to its responsibility, like the issues of corruption, issues of security, and all that. We don't need to blame the executive alone. I think that the parliament can do much more. And on corruption, I remember that in the Ninth Assembly, the present assembly, the issue came up again whether we should make corruption capital punishment. When I started that bill, I started it in the 7th Assembly, it was shut down. The 8th Assembly, it didn't see the light of the day. 9th Assembly, it became even doubly difficult to bring up such bills. But I believe that we should be bold enough to take steps that will help in repairing our society. And these are the things that has to do with, if people look at it, that sometimes that one is extreme in his beliefs. Extreme because I think we are lost.
It's my interest, you know, while you were answering this question, and I mean, you've given me somewhat of an opening, you know, to take you up on some issues. I mean, because you raised the issue of boldness. You are known, I mean, I have monitored, in fact, from the 7th Assembly, you became quite easily noticeable on the floor of the House because you don't mince your words. You know, of course, I know a bit about your background in University Students Unionism and the National Association of Nigerian Students. And, you know, so when we saw what started playing out at the 7th National Assembly, we knew where you were coming from. But at some point, I wondered if politics perhaps watered down your passion for activism, or how that your activism background pioneered your contributions and participations in House debates, and pioneered your positions on issues of critical public importance. Me? Can you?
I would say yes, somewhat. Politics watered down my activism. I will not be ashamed to admit that. I say so because outside politics, life is not the same. When you are involved, you begin to see that some of the things that we think are easy to achieve are not that easy to achieve after all. But I am one person who believes that it is not enough to criticize. It is better to be involved if you truly want to change society. It's not enough to talk about the ills of the system from the outside. It is better to be an insider and begin to cause those changes from the inside. So generally, if you ask that, why have you not been that active? A lot of factors. I'm not involved. I've seen some of the realities. Besides that, age is also not on my side. You don't expect that the things that one did when he was 20, 21 years old, even at 50 to 60, that you will still be the same way. Your perception of life is bound to change.
You know, Honorable, talking about changing perspectives, and you know, I remember the bill you sponsored in 2015, the National Conference and Referendum Bill. Of course, the ultimate idea was to have Nigerians participate in the process of approving a new constitution for the country. Well, we know how that ended, but I have noticed over time, I think you talked about the constitutional alteration bills that you've sponsored over time. You seem driven to have these changes made. Has your position changed on the matter, the core matter that you raised in the National Conference and Referendum Bill since in 2015, and especially as we look ahead to the 10th Assembly, and hopefully, or rather we hope for further constitutional alterations in key areas?
My position has not changed. My position remains the same, and that proposed bill for total overhaul of the Constitution is still in the works. And what I have tried to do is to see how I can get more members to buy the idea, so that by the time it comes up on the floor of the House, it will be more popular than it was when it was first proposed. I believe that we need a complete overhaul of the Constitution that we have today. But yes, there are still issues, there are problems. If you look at the area that provides for amendment of the Constitution, whether it allows for holistic upset of the Constitution and introduction of a completely new Constitution, or piecemeal amendment of the Constitution, these arguments are there. And we have also taken it further to scholars. We have taken it to professionals to look at it and advise. And that bill, which proposed a quasi-parliamentary system as against what we operate today, part of the proposal in that proposed constitution amendment is that we have a unicameral legislature. And you know that that will not be popular in a bicameral system, because the implication is that one house has to be shut down to give way for only one house. And some of the reasoning for this is that the system we operate, the parliamentary system we operate today, yes, copied from other climes, but it is very expensive for our country. And we're talking about economic issues, whilst the cost of administration is unbearable. It's difficult for any government to succeed with the increasing cost of public administration in Nigeria. And we don't have any other country other than this country, and so we must be ready to make sacrifice for this country to grow. So my answer to the question is, my position has not changed. I'm only trying to see how we can get more persons to buy this position and make it easier to fly.
You know, there's something else I do also recall, and it's your work on the Electoral Offences Commission and the Electoral Offences Tribunal, which of course was just a part of the four bills, which were later or subsequently consolidated into one on the subject matter. But of course, it speaks directly to your position on pursuing further electoral amendments. Now, looking at the 2023 general elections in retrospect, and some of what I've since played out, how seriously do you think the 10th House of Representatives, or indeed the 10th National Assembly, should pursue this objective? And how expansive should electoral reforms be in order to safeguard our elections and deepen democratic processes?
As far as I'm concerned, electoral reforms must be a continuous process. I give kudos to the National Assembly, the Ninth Assembly, for the amendment of the Electoral Act, but there's still more work to be done. And then the Electoral Offences Act or Bill, it's one that I pray that this Assembly will be able to pass before we wind down. And the Speaker has actually given his words that he will ensure that that bill is passed into law. It will help to strengthen our democratic system, our electoral system. And I believe that the 10th Assembly should improve on the amendment to the Electoral Act by drawing from experiences in the field, the issues of upload of results, the issues of beavers and all that, and then also move further to even electronic voting. We can achieve it, and the progress is gradual, but I believe that we are on track. And so, clearly, I still think that there is need to conclude with that bill on electoral offences.
Great. What's your position on perhaps electronic voting as well? If we're talking about expansively reforming the electoral process.
Electronic voting, I think that we should take it poco a poco. We will take it step by step, but that should be our target, that should be our vision, that should be our mission. But then other structures ought to be in place before we get there. Today we have introduced beavers. I think we can take a step further by ensuring that everything that we do locally will be in compliance with the electronic voting, and then gradually we will have a total system. Although even in advanced countries, you have both manual and electronic system, and I think that mixture will be good. The other thorny area is whether our brothers in diaspora should be allowed to vote. And all these things, I think that we should set those things as target. Every Nigerian citizen should be given a right to determine who serves them in this country in every capacity. But then how do you ensure that whilst giving this right, that it is also not abused, like who collates the results from outside of this country and all that. It's a gradual process, like I said, but the important thing is that we must continue to change. We must continue to improve on whatever we have. We should not at any point in time think that it's a comfortable point to stop. So I think that the 10th Assembly should improve on the Electoral Act, should also target full electronic voting, should also target to avail every Nigerian, wherever you are, the opportunity to determine who should be in public office.
Honorable, you preempted my question on the aspirant voting, which, I mean, so that we have that covered already. But, you know, somewhere in your bio is the fact that, you know, I gleaned off your bio, is the issue of having tactical planning and strategizing as hobbies. I found that quite intriguing. And I'd like to know, for how do you plan to navigate this whole National Assembly leadership position chapter for the 10th Assembly, especially recalling what transpired between your party, yourself, Honorable Elumelu, and Speaker Biamila, not so long ago in the distant past. Can you confirm to us, the Nigerians watching, if perhaps you will be interested in the minority leader position of the House of Representatives this time around, since things are somewhat leaning to your favor, you know, as you're one of the more favorably ranking members to clinch that position? Or would you be willing to accept and serve?
Firstly, of course, one should be willing to accept and serve if you're called upon and you think that you are qualified to so do. And clearly, I think that I am qualified to so serve in any capacity in this country today. However, I also believe that people should be allowed to determine those they want to put forward to serve them. So if the minorities decide that I should be put forward, of course, I'm ready for service. If they also decide otherwise, it does not stop me from rendering service to this country. First, I am elected to represent the people of Obiabo Federal Constituency, and then to also make my contribution to nation building. That is more important to me. If in the House I am found worthy to serve in any capacity, I will render that such service.
Before I let you go, I mean, I'm sure you're aware of the, it's reported that the 10th Assembly has recorded the highest number of turnover of experienced and old lawmakers, federal lawmakers. Are you worried that these might somehow impede or impact on the quality of deliberations on the floor of the House, seeing that almost half the member of both chambers of the National Assembly will be newbies? I mean, are you worried that it may slow? Are you perturbed that it may slow progress somewhat, especially for you there in the House of Representatives?
Yes, I would say that this is the lowest we have recorded so far, but then it's a challenge to those of us who are ranking members. What it means is that we must be engaged in developing our colleagues that are coming by way of training and retraining, by way of ensuring that on the floor of the House, we're able to manage deliberations on the floor of the House to bring to bear our wealth of experience so that the new members will be able to know how these things are done, parliamentary practices. And for me as a person, within this period, I've been able to engage in coming up with a book that helps to explain the rules of Parliament. I pray that with God on my side, that book will be unveiled either within the first quarter of the new assembly or even before the new assembly. It will add value and perhaps will help to fill some of the gaps that the non-availability of sufficient number of experienced parliamentarians would have filled.
Honorable Kingsley Chinda, sitting member and member-elect for Obiakpo Federal Constituency, I'd like to thank you so much for being part of the mandate tonight. It's been a delight listening to your take on these key national issues. I'd like to wish you plenty of luck, seeing that the National Assembly will be promulgated sometime in June. We will be monitoring to see how you provide quality representation, I beg your pardon, to your constituent. Thank you so much for being part of the program tonight.
My pleasure, and I'm very grateful for having me on your program.
That's it for tonight. Join us same time tomorrow for another fresh episode of the program. My name is Nnamdi Adipo. Bye for now.